So just a brief introduction. My name is Luc Mulling, the moderator of today. You join in to hear more about the masterclass first of all, but also the possible master in viticulture and enology. So the next 45 minutes or so, we will go over that. First of all, a couple of interactive options. You can write where you're logging in from, as already many did in the chat. Also, you can write your questions at any time through the panel at the right bottom called questions. I will be opening up some polling questions later on. And the last but not least, we have an interactive option at the bottom of the screen. You can click on the button called React. And with that, you can give your reaction to if you hear something, for example, you like. Exactly. That's the one. So do let us know. And without further ado, we go over to Julia, who will be introducing herself and her panel. So good luck.
Thank you very much, Luc. So hello, everybody. I am Giulia Invernizzi. I work for Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, and together with Professor Stefano Poni and Riccardo Castellana, alumni of our master, we are going to give a short actual masterclass on what the Sustainable Viticulture and Enology master's degree is about. So, Luc, could you please share the presentation so that I can go over the agenda? Thank you very much. Okay, so as I said, Stefano Poni is a professor and program coordinator of our MSc in Sustainable Viticulture and Enology at Università Cattolica. Riccardo is a former student. He just graduated, so we're going to hear a little bit of his experience as well. And so what we are going to do today is we're going to introduce Università Cattolica, because somehow, you have to understand the context before choosing whether to apply to one university or the other. Then we're going to go over a masterclass on climate change and viticulture, which is always very appreciated and hot topic. Professor Poni is going to be the host of this part. And then we're going to go over the program details. We're going to ask Riccardo what his experience was. And then we're going to go briefly over the admission procedures with the entry requirements, the timeline, and the tuition fees that usually we charge for this program. Then at the end, of course, you can ask us as many questions as you like. We'll try to answer to all of them. So without further ado, we are going to go to the presentation of Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore. So it's a long name, but we go by Cattolica. We are one of the biggest universities in Europe, actually the largest university, private university in Europe, one of the biggest in particular in Italy, with 5 different campuses. And actually the campus that I am talking from is the Milan campus, but then Professor Poni and Riccardo are currently in Piacenza, and we have other 3 campuses, Milan, Brescia, Cremona, and Rome, and Bolzano as well. We're big and we host 12 different schools with 12 different subject areas and more than 4,800 international students. 40,000 is the overall numbers of students that we have currently enrolled. We are pretty new for the standard of Italian universities. Remember that the first university in the world was an Italian university, and it was founded in the medieval times. And also we have many programs taught in English and many, many more taught in Italian. More than 40 actually English taught programs as of today, and more than 200 Italian taught programs right now. So this is a little bit about who we are. But I think the most important and most interesting part of our webinar today is going to be about the masterclass that Professor Poni is going to host for us. And please, Professor, go ahead. I am very happy to hear from an expert such as you are in this topic.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Julia. Well, welcome everyone. You already know me from the video at least. And so I'm a professor of viticulture at the Catholic University. And today I'll try to just give you an example of the kind of content that you might find in case you enroll in our master. And I mean, of course, climate change topic is the topic today. And we are really struggling in viticulture with the climate change, because it is true that the change in climate is giving us some opportunities, but it's also giving us a lot of problems. And most of these problems actually occur in the vineyard. Okay, so these are just a few hot topics for today. And of course, the word hot has a double meaning. Hot meaning that is urgent, but hot in terms of temperature. Okay, and so, well, if you look at the next slide, by the way, this guy, I mean, some time ago, well, I think that he already understood what was the point. Okay, so Charles Darwin anticipated that, you know, the species that is actually able to resist, to be resilient to climate change is the most adaptable. And in fact, today we are looking for adaptation to climate change from one side and to mitigation from the other side. And okay, very briefly, a couple of general things on climate change. You know, I don't know if anyone is still arguing who's guilty for the change in climate. Well, I think that if we look at this kind of exceptional figure, where I would like you to just concentrate on the top panel of this figure. See, this is a very peculiar graph because we do have the trend of the CO2 concentration in the air. So over 400,000 years. So it's an incredible long amount of time. And you do see that the CO2 concentrate or the carbon dioxide concentration has been, I mean, kept just below 300 ppm for almost 400,000 years. And then, you know, starting from basically a couple of centuries ago, it started to rise. And today we have in the air outside 420 ppm. Well, this is us, basically. So that is the reason. So industrial revolution, and then the development of other fuels and things. And so now we have a trouble going on, okay? Again, I mean, the impact of climate change. Now, today we are actually focusing on viticulture, okay? That's right. But just let me give you an example of what could be the effect of climate change on coffee that is grown in Uganda, in Africa. Okay, so today you see on your left, you have a map of Uganda showing 3 different colors representing in areas where, you know, the land is very suitable to grow coffee. That is a dark or the brown color actually. The light brown is an area that's okay, but it's not ideal, but still okay. Whereas the white is okay, not suitable because the climate is not good enough to grow coffee. Just imagine that we have a heating of 2 degrees above this situation. So just project this map in the future and imagine having plus 2 degrees. And if we redraw the map, we do see that basically coffee disappears from Uganda. Now, this is a very extreme example, but it gives us a very good idea of what is a challenge today. Today, the challenge is first adaptation. That means we are trying to adapt to the change. And there is an upper level that is mitigation. Mitigation is when we are trying actually to act on the causes of climate change. So it's a much more active approach. Okay, now, climate change is good for someone, is bad for others. This is, you see, the increase in the hectares of vineyards in UK, basically, okay, and Welsh. And you see that there is an exponential increase. We all know that those areas are becoming more interesting for growing grapes, mostly for sparkling wine, but not just for sparkling wine, all right? And on the other side, we do have areas like Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, so the big producers of wine that are actually going into a lot of troubles. These 5 pictures are actually showing 5, let's say, abiotic stresses that are all related to climate change. This is flooding. We had a lot of flooding in our area last year and 2 years ago. Then we have this picture here that I'm just pointing now. And this is weird, right? Because this picture was taken day 2 of January, and there is already bud break. Now we are in the northern hemisphere, right? And bud break usually is in April. But how come we have bud break in winter? Well, that again, an effect of climate change. Hail damage, frost damage, drought. Those are really big worries for everyone growing grapes today in Italy and I would say in the world. Now, just let me give you an example of what is the kind of challenge that we are facing right now. This is a very simple graph showing 4 climatic areas: cool, warm and hot. Okay, and you see that there is a number of varieties. I'm sure that you are familiar with many of them. Just take Müller-Thurgau, for instance, or Pinot Gris. Those are basically early ripening varieties, and they enjoy a sort of cool climate. And then we have Nebbiolo and Sangiovese, where they like a sort of, a warm climate. But take a look at the Pinot Noir. Okay, Pinot Noir is here. And you see that actually there is a niche of temperature within which Pinot Noir can grow and actually make an excellent wine. Well, this niche is approximately 2 degrees wide, all right? In the middle, we have the Bourgogne region, of course, but you can make a very good Pinot Noir if you are here or there, or even at the extremes, right? But what happened in 2003, okay? Well, in 2003, I remember that very well. That was one of the hottest season ever in Europe, okay? And in that specific season, the amount of heat available was actually outside the optimal range for Pinot Noir. Now, the question is, does that mean that the Pinot Noir in 2003 was not good? Well, of course not. There was still a good Pinot Noir in 2003. But the question is, let's put the case that this one is happening with higher frequency on time. And so what would be the adaptation of the cultivar? Is the cultivar able to adapt, or are we supposed either to move the cultivar or to change the cultivar? Okay, this is a very good example. Another general effect on viticulture due to climate change is that the phenology of the vine is anticipated, okay? So all the phenological stages basically occur earlier in the season. So we have an earlier bud break, we have an earlier flowering, and so on. On this graph, I would like you to just concentrate briefly on this panel on your right-hand side, okay? And these are data from Australia, as is basically the Adelaide area. And you see that there is, of course, here for a time window that goes from 1992 to 2012, there is a negative relationship between what? Between the year and the harvest date, right? And you see that being negative, well, that means with progression of time, we do have an earlier and earlier harvest. Don't get confused. This is the southern hemisphere. That is why harvest is in February or March, okay? But there is another issue here that is, again, more important. 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, in Australia, the difference in the harvest time between Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay, this one is Chardonnay, the other one is Cabernet Sauvignon, was 21 days, 3 weeks. That is what you are basically expecting, right? Today, well, it's not exactly today, but 10 years ago, it went down to 9 days. So there is basically a compression of the harvest season because the ripening is faster and it tends to concentrate in a limited amount of time with a lot of troubles in the logistics, for instance. Imagine that you have to bring huge loads of grapes to the winery and they come all of a sudden. And so that would make actually the winemaker actually driving crazy at that point. I'm very serious about that. Well, another issue that I would like to mention today is I'm sure that you are familiar with a sort of keyword that today is very much used in general, but especially in viticulture, that is biodiversity, right? So everyone likes biodiversity. Everyone wants biodiversity. Well, but biodiversity is like a big box, and we need to understand what's inside the box, okay? This is very interesting. I'm working in an area that is in the Emilia-Romagna region, the Colli Piacentini area. We grow approximately 6,000 hectares of vineyards. They are located on the hillside land, actually. Ortrugo, this is a name very difficult to be pronounced, even for myself, I swear. Ortrugo is a good white variety, and the market actually requires a lot of Ortrugo. But Ortrugo has a problem. You know, when you have to actually do some white wine, and maybe it's a sparkling type, well, what you need to have at harvest is enough acidity, right? You need to have basically enough malic acid besides tartaric acid. Now, if you look at this graph is basically the relationship between malic acid that you see on the y-axis and the Brix, the sugar concentration in the berry that you see on the x-axis. And you see this yellow line here, this yellow curve is Ortrugo. And you see that this guy actually, with increasing sugar, is just losing acidity so fast. And that's a problem. But if you take a few of the local varieties that we tested in this trial, Barbesino, Bucalò, Molinelli, whatever, they all have this very good attitude that if you just take a given Brix value and you go vertical, well, you would see that at the same Brix, they are able to retain higher acidity. Well, this is nice because this would represent a permanent solution to the Ortrugo problem, not being able actually to maintain enough acids. It's an excellent example. Then again, probably you noticed that I'm not really digging too much into specific data, into statistics. It could be very complicated, believe me. I would just like you to give you examples. examples of what we are supposed to face today in vineyards. And this would be a good opportunity actually to ask a question to the crowd, but let me do this. Just look at the picture, only the picture. You see, in the top panel, I have a row of Sangiovese. Sangiovese is the most important red variety that we grow in Italy, okay? We still grow more than 65,000 hectares of Sangiovese, all right? And this row is another red variety that's called Montepulciano, all right? Now, these two rows are actually located in the same vineyard, and so they are really nearby, okay? They're very close. Well, it's clear that if I ask you which one of the two is doing better, well, you would say, hey, Montepulciano is doing great, right? You see the green leaves, actually, it's very healthy. But the Sangiovese already has yellow leaves, the basal part of the canopy, and it doesn't really look like very healthy. And so your conclusion would be, well, Montepulciano is okay, and Sangiovese is very bad. Well, believe it or not, well, if you judge on just a visual basis, of course, everyone agrees. But if you take physiological measurements on those canopies, you will see that actually Montepulciano is doing worse than Sangiovese. Montepulciano is what is called an isohydric variety, meaning that when Montepulciano feels that the water stress is coming, the reaction of this variety is just a very fast stomatal closure. So the stomates close because he wants to save water. But unfortunately, the stomate is like a sliding door. Okay, and you know, if you close the stomate, you don't allow water to get out, but you don't allow the CO2 to get in. And so you have no photosynthesis. Whereas the Sangiovese is smart, because he says, okay, I'm sacrificing the basal part of the canopy, that is the old one, but I'm still keeping, you know, functional, the median and the apical part of the canopy. And so, believe me, the Sangiovese is doing better, although it would be almost impossible to judge on a visual basis. Again, of course, drought means that we should use more irrigation in vineyards. You know, especially in some old European countries, like in France, in Italy, and in Spain, you know, the coupling irrigation and wine, it's not always, you know, sometimes it says, okay, now if you give water, you're forcing the yield and blah, blah. Well, today, the problem is that we get a lot of water stress. And so we need to handle also the irrigation topic. And, you know, just imagine artificial intelligence helps, but what's the link between irrigation in a vineyard and artificial intelligence? Well, the link is very clear. Today, we have developed models. These models uses basically machine learning approaches from one side and big data analytics from the other side. And so what we can do, and in our master, we have at least a couple of courses dealing specifically with this kind of topic. What we can do is exactly this. So we can build basically what is basically a water budget of the whole vineyard, okay? That's based on very simple inputs. And so we can actually, you know, staying in our office, okay, air conditioning in summer, we can monitor what's happening in the field. You see here, we have an example of a vineyard. Top panel, indicates the amount of available water. And you see that as long as the green color stays on, well, that means that there is no risk of water stress. But then you get a yellow alarm, okay, a yellow warning, and then you get a red zone. And so likely when you get at this point, it's about time actually to open up your sprinklers and just to give water. So when we talk about irrigation in a vineyard, the things that we have absolutely to avoid are, first, giving water too late. For instance, oh, okay, I gave water yesterday when I saw that the leaves were just yellowing. That's too late, totally unuseful. You're wasting water, okay? On the other side, we don't have to give water when it's not necessary. Otherwise, we are turning the irrigation practice into a forcing practice. We will again waste water, and we will actually improve too much the vigor of the vine, and we will decrease the quality of the grapes. Okay. Again, I don't know if you are, I see that you are coming from very different countries, but I think that in summer, it's very common actually having air temperatures approaching 40 degrees, all right? And just imagine if you have a cluster of a red variety like this one, okay? Imagine that the air temperature is around 40 degrees. What do you think could be the surface temperature of this cluster on that specific day? Well, let me tell you that the cluster temperature can easily reach 50 degrees, so it can be a plus 10 degrees higher. And you know, when you get that kind of temperature, we are running into overheating, sunburn, and necrosis. And so we have the issue of trying to do something to prevent overeating in the clusters and in the leaves. And this is an approach that has been trialed for many years in many countries. We had good data in Italy, but the same has been done in Spain, Portugal, and in France as well, south of France mostly. And that is spraying kaolin. Kaolin is a white clay that has a very nice reflectance property, and it's actually able to reflect most of the light. And so basically it's a sort of cooling system, all right? And it's amazing when you have this row where you see that the white section has been sprayed with kaolin. The one is the control treatment with no kaolin sprayed, and then you take a thermal picture of this row, and you would see actually that this part, you see it's still around yellow and green, that is, not so high temperature, whereas here you see that a lot of red is coming up. Well, the kaolin can actually warrant a cooling up to 4 or 5 degrees less on a specific organ. And the other good feature that it's not very expensive. And this is again another thing that's very appreciated by growers. Okay, I'm approaching the end, but here I have a quite challenging topic that I would like actually to address with you briefly. And the topic deals with frost. The frost damage is really a nightmare. It's becoming a nightmare in many countries. You probably remember, especially in France and in Italy, those pictures posted on the socials showing fires that were lit during the night to heat up the air and prevent frost. Okay, famous pictures in the Bordeaux area, for instance. But this is what happens when we get a frost damage. Frost is a low temperature that is occurring when the vegetation had started already. And so we have case A, case B, and case C. These are 3 different levels of damage. If you ask me which one is the worst, I would indeed answer A, because in A, you just have 2 shoots growing and they are all killed. They are both dead, and there is not much to do there, all right? But for facing the frost, that apparently Wait a minute. Okay, now the frost is an expression of a low temperature phenomenon, right? But we have been talking for 20 minutes about global warming. And so how come the global warming is actually associated to something that is representing a low temperature related effect? Very simple, because since in spring the air and the soil warm up early, well, even the bud break is anticipated. And so basically we are actually widening the time window within which we may have chances of a frost damage. I have to say that we are taking the merit for having invented this practice that can be helpful if you want to escape a frost damage. Of course, you need to be lucky enough. I mean, viticulture is not like math, okay? So there is always a probability that things just don't go well. However, this is a protocol for what is called a very late winter pruning. Usually you prune a vine anywhere between the leaf drop and the beginning of bud burst next year. Well, in this case, on a pre-pruned vine, all right, we wait until, you see here, the vegetation starts on the apical shoots of this cane, okay? And only at that stage, we complete the pruning that is meant to leave 2 short spurs. A spur is a very short cane. Here, the advantage is that, you know, if there is a frost damage that arrives when we are at this stage, oh yeah, the frost will kill those shoots, but we will get new shoots from the basal nodes, and that will solve the problem. All right? So this has been tried in many farms and wineries, and it works well. Okay, let me go to the basically to the conclusions. The new frontiers. Oh, well, viticulture is really a gym now where you can actually play different exercises. All right. And for instance, there is some interest rising right now on actually using agrivoltaic systems on your vineyard. You know, the scope is very clear. This is an example of what it's called in books, a dual use of land. Okay, so you have a vineyard, right? You are in an area where, of course, you have excess of light and temperature. So it's not basically a cool climate, it's a climate where you have a lot of energy. Okay, so you are using the agrivoltaic panels to either capture light and produce energy. At the same time, you want to screen the vines in order to avoid sunburn, overheating, and this kind of stuff. It's nice because this is our vineyard in Piacenza. Well, if you enroll in our master, you might be able to work on that. All right. And the other thing is that there are 2 strange things in this picture, right? One is the panels. Okay, these panels can move actually laterally. They can actually track completely the sun, or they can avoid the sun. It's totally automated. And the other thing that you're not probably familiar with is that we use in Piacenza since many years this whole canopy gas exchange approach. So we actually envelope the canopies in this big balloon that is basically polyethylene, and we are able actually to measure continuously the gas exchange of this canopy on a 24-hour basis, and we can get data of photosynthesis, respiration, and transpiration. So basically we measure everything. Well, I guess that is most of what I was planning to tell you. I don't really want to advertise myself. However, if you want to deepen a little bit some of the topics. There is a book from myself that is this one. Don't fool around trying to look that in your library. It's just available on Amazon. Just to be very clear, it's available only online in that case. And so if I see a rise in the selling rate, that's your credit, of course. And what else? Oh, I think that is, well, thanks for your attention. This is my wish also for the coming season. We really need to be lucky when we grow grapes. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. I think it's always very interesting to hear about, this topic in particular. I'm a wine lover, so I really am.
Good to know.
Yeah, I am really enthusiastic
always
about
good
the
to know.
opportunity. So what I would like to do before going to Riccardo and to our little interview is to focus on the program itself. We already have talked about it for the last 38 minutes, so I'm not going to be long. But what I would like to say is that this program is taught in Piacenza, as we already said. It is a course which is centered about what Professor Poni just explained, so climate change, biodiversity, sustainability, and it has a lot of practical scenarios. So you have seen the vineyard where Professor Poni and his students work. You have seen it in the video at the beginning as well. And there is a reason why the program is taught in Piacenza, which is Piacenza is one of the biggest wine regions of Emilia-Romagna and Lombardy. So it's a very important place where also there's a lot of industry connections. You are surrounded by the industry. So this is what Cattolica tries to do with every single course that we offer to the students. Also, we are going to hear from Riccardo what the opportunities are, and one of the opportunities that we know students are taking after they graduate from this degree. One last thing that I want to mention, because I think Professor Poni also mentioned it at the beginning, but maybe not all of you were here at the beginning, is that we have a double degree option with ESA Angers, and we also have exchange options in Adelaide and in Geisenheim in Germany. We are going to hear about an exchange experience in Adelaide from Riccardo as well. So I am very happy to begin talking to our student, which is not a student anymore, actually. He graduated, but I am very happy that he's here with us today. So, Riccardo, can you maybe introduce yourself a bit and tell us where you come from? What was your academic background? Tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So first, thank you for having me. I'm Riccardo Castellana. I'm originally from Piacenza, the hills around Piacenza. So I was born and raised around Unicattolica. I took my bachelor in Università Cattolica. I studied food production management, and then I decided to specialize in the wine sector after basically falling in love with the topics of both viticulture and enology. And so the master was right there. It was really, really interesting. And I already knew Cattolica, so I felt like that was my next choice.
Absolutely. Born and raised in Piacenza, born and raised in Cattolica, basically. So I am very happy to hear about these stories. So you said that Cattolica was your first choice, but what do you think the Sustainable Viticulture and Enology program has that all the other programs that you have considered maybe do not have?
Yeah, so it was my first choice because I was there. It was the one that I was most familiar with, but I definitely considered other masters before enrolling. And it's, at the time, definitely the only master in viticulture and enology that was completely taught in English. I don't know if now there's more, but it was definitely one of the first. And especially the ease of doing exchange semester was what really sold me on it, because as I said, I've studied in Piacenza my whole life, and I was, wanting to get another experience, something more abroad, something different, something to basically get out of Piacenza for a little bit. And the exchange opportunities are what sold me, and I'm really glad I made this choice.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the experience that you had in Adelaide. But before that, how would you describe your academic experience? Like, what's the aspect of the program that has been the most exciting and one that has been really challenging?
Yeah, so probably what most people, definitely most Italian students are afraid of. I don't know if there's a lot listening to us today, but anyway, the language might seem a little bit scary to some people, but definitely don't worry about it. The professors are all extremely available to make clarifications, corrections, and help you out with the language. Maybe also a lot of people are scared of the experimental thesis. Don't be scared. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be super rewarding, and you're going to learn a lot. It was definitely the most challenging aspect for me, just for the sheer amount of work that was needed. The research, the literary research first, then the experiments themselves, and then the writing part especially. I'm not that good at writing, but you're going to manage. Take your time. Most of my fellow course mates started in the first year, and if you can already find a project, start, because you're gonna need the time. I didn't have the option because I went to Adelaide, so I had to start a little bit late, but if you push yourself, you can definitely make up the time. So don't worry, but worry a little bit.
Okay, don't worry, but do worry. It's an amazing suggestion.
Yeah,
okay, thank you very much, Riccardo. So you said that you had an international experience in Australia, and can you tell us more about why you chose Australia, and what do you think the competitive advantage was with, having this kind of experience?
Yeah, so Australia, for those of you that don't know, and Adelaide in particular, is one of the biggest research hubs for viticulture and enology. So just to have the possibility to go there first, because if you check, like the Master of Viticulture and Enology in Adelaide is unreachable. The option to go there and study for a little bit is just amazing. Also, the teaching methods are extremely different. We have a lot of practical stuff in our master, but in Adelaide they push even more onto that side of teaching, and you're gonna really have your hands in making the wine. They teach you how to actually manage a vineyard, like by being there. They show you a little bit more, because the vineyard there is a little bit bigger than ours. It's really, and just the possibility to see something so different from Europe, from Italy, it's really amazing.
Yeah, in Italian we would say to put the hands in pasta.
Exactly. I was trying to say it, but it couldn't come out in English. So.
Yeah, to put the hands in wine.
Yeah.
Okay. Very, very interesting, and absolutely, this is coming from a person who works for an international office. If you have the chance to go abroad, do it, because it changes your life anyways, regardless of the program you're choosing. I know, piece of unsolicited advice, of course. And what is the advice you would give, Riccardo, to our prospective students considering this program?
I think one of the best things about this master is the fact that you're all international students. There's a lot in our course. It was only 2 Italian students and the rest were foreign students. So just the possibility to speak and to interact with people your age that share wine as a common interest is amazing for just the conversations, either about research or about wine itself, or drinking wine together, or just talking life experiences. It's an amazing added value that not all university courses are going to have. And and also explore Italy a little bit if you're not from there. Piacenza is really good because it's quite central and it's quite easy to go anywhere from Liguria to Toscana to Lombardy to the mountains. You can take your pick.
Absolutely. Last question, Riccardo. What are you up to now that you have finished your degree?
Yeah, so I graduated in December. I'm now not in Piacenza. I'm in Montepulciano, Tuscany. I just started last week an internship in Avignonesi, which is a really big winery here in the Montepulciano area. I'm working right now mostly in the vineyards, sometimes in the winery. I'm just now there's not a lot to do in the vineyards, so I'll be helping out with managing the treatments, phytopathological studies. They have a lot of research that they try to do to improve their management, both in the winery and in the vineyards as well. They're always trying out new machinery, new approaches. So yeah, I just started, so I don't have a lot to tell you, but it's really, really good and really interesting. And
very nice. Well, if you are going to be here next year as well, I'm definitely going to ask you how it has been as an experience. So thank you very much, Riccardo, really.
thank you.
And I'm going to go over the last topic, I think, before the question and answer session. So if you have any questions, please do write them down. But I really wanted to go over the last part of the webinar for today. So how to apply and what the entry requirements are. So we have opened our applications it was December. So you have until May 7 if you are non-EU. So if you're not from the EU, you have a couple more months to apply. If you are an EU student with an EU passport, so you don't need a visa, you're going to have until the 25th of June this year. So you have a little bit of time, but remember that the sooner you apply, the sooner you can start organizing what the experience is going to look like. And particularly if you're not from Italy or Piacenza, like Riccardo is, you're going to have to find an accommodation, to explore a little bit. So it's easier if you apply earlier. The tuition fee would be 6,625 for EU students and 9,050 for non-EU students, with the scholarship, which basically evens it out with the EU tuition fee. And what we would need for you to be a successful applicant here would be, first of all, an English proficiency certificate with a B2 level. We accept most of the English certificates that a lot of universities accept. So Cambridge, IELTS, TOEFL are the most common ones. And also you have to have an undergraduate degree. you don't have to worry if you haven't finished it yet. Most of you are actually not going to be finishing your degree before you start the application. We know, and we evaluate your whole academic background, and you have to obtain the degree before the 31st of July. So you will be sending it over to us later on. Also, another thing that I think you might have thought and you might have grasped from what Professor Poni was explaining is that you have to have a background in this kind of things to understand. So these kind of topics, which are a little specific. So we welcome students with undergraduate degrees in fields such as agricultural and forestry sciences, zootechnical sciences, biotechnology, agricultural and food economics, environmental sciences. So it has to have at least a bit to do with what you're going to study next. Otherwise, it's going to be a little too much to handle as a master's science level. So that's basically it. I noticed that there were some questions coming, so I'm gonna leave the QR code to access the platform to apply, and I'm going to ask Luke if he can ask the questions for me, and I'm trying to answer, or I don't know if I can just give the word to Professor Poni or Riccardo regarding the topics that they covered.
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks already, everyone. And we did indeed get some questions, so we go over to those. So just before that, you shared the QR code, but I also shared actually the link. You can go to apps at the bottom of the screen and click on links. There you find already 2 links to the online application portal and also to the program details. So then you can read more about it as well. Now let's go over to the questions. So we received a question from Femi asking, do you help with housing?
Yeah, I'm taking that. So we have an institution called Educat, which kind of helps with housing in the sense that there are some accommodations that we provide, but they're not many. We are, unfortunately, as most European countries, unable to meet the demand for housing, but we also do have some advice on where to find accommodations. So we have some specifics on our website. You can go check it out. But that would basically, I would say, we don't have enough accommodation to meet the demand in general, even in smaller campuses. But what you need to know on the bright side is that Piacenza is definitely easier to tackle as much as a housing market is concerned because of the request, which is a little lower, I would say, from students than in other cities in the north of Italy, which have a university background, like Pavia, for instance. Pavia is packed with students, so it's very difficult to find accommodation. Piacenza is a little less complicated, so we hope that it stays this way.
No, don't hear you.
Yeah, no,
I'm on mute.
yeah, you were on mute.
Rookie mistake. It happens to the best. So I had a question from Matthias. I want to know if I can apply for a scholarship or pay for my studies by working.
Well, you can definitely apply for a scholarship. If you are from a non-EU country, you can absolutely ask for the UCSC International Scholarship, the one that I mentioned before. Also, you can apply to merit and income-based scholarships through Educat again. Of course, it depends on merits and income. So you have to you have to look at their requirements in order to get one of those and pay for your studies by working. I think it can be done with a little bit of practice and a lot of organizational skills, I would say, because the courses are not most courses, and correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Poni, are not mandatory attendance, but
Okay,
of
yeah.
course,
Well,
yeah,
it's very important to clarify that attendance of courses is not mandatory by law. Okay, so in theory you can just stay in your room and study and taking the exams. That is not recommended, of course, right?
of
But
course.
in general, yeah, in general, the timetable in the week is you will have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday pretty full, right? And Thursday is basically for practical activities, field visits, and so on. And Fridays is relatively free. So if you want to have a longer weekend, you can do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
basically, it's quite well balanced. But of course, the plus in this kind of masters sometimes is really actually attending the courses and having the chance to discuss with the professor. Otherwise, studying on a book can become a little bit boring after a while.
Yeah, well, so it's
One
really
thing that I
impactful.
would like to mention that's very important is the following one. I'm sure that some one of you would be interested in the double degree option because I know that having the perspective of staying 1 year in Italy and then actually going to France for the second year, at the end, the graduation is actually released by both institutions. So you have really a double degree. But keep in mind that we have only 5 available positions for that. And so, I mean, if you are pretty much convinced and sure that you want to start an application, please do it.
Yeah. Thank you very much for clarifying that as well. It's always worth mentioning this, right?
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Great. We're getting thumbs up, so that's good to see. Good. Next question from Sam. Sam asks, how are exams structured? Will it be an oral and written exam, or will it depend on the course?
Professor, I'd say...
That depends very much on the courses. Well, I would say that probably there is a good balance between oral and written exams. It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. Well, personally, since in my class I do have a lot of students, I do have the students from the Master of Science, and then we also have the crowd of people from the Vintage Master actually joining us this semester, and they will actually join the other students in a single class. So I have more than 45 people. So at that point, the written test is, is okay, even for my health. But in general, there is a good mix.
Okay, good. Thank you. Next question from Emily. What do most students pursue as a career? Have any students gotten a PhD, for example, after graduating?
Oh, okay, Emily. All right. Well, Emily, well, it depends. It depends on you. I mean, if you ask me, do you have unemployed people coming out from this master? Well, my question would be no. Well, actually, we are getting, job offers from wineries and farms and companies, and we do not have enough people. Believe me, that is the way it goes. Okay, so I would be very, very, clear at saying, finding a job at the end, easy. Then another thing is if you want to pursue an academic career, that is totally different. At that point, of course, you need to run for a PhD. But again, in Piacenza, we do have a PSD school that is really large. And every year we do have also a lot of positions. But of course, it's a totally different story. One thing I've noticed is that, for instance, students coming from the US, they have graduated, and I know a couple of them, they have been hired in Piedmont, for instance. They are actually running the winery. They're very happy. They say they don't want to go back. I don't know why, but anyway, they are happy, and so we are happy. No, no, really, I'm not kidding. No issues for jobs. I mean, there is a fairly high demand on that.
Good to hear. Sam has another question for the professor. He recently visited the Modena region of Italy and was surprised by the air pollution and fog in the region. Can smog affect grape growth and the final wine product?
No, we don't have that kind of problem. Well, of course, I mean, also you visited an area that is very particular, Sam, because if you were in the Modena area, you were in the Lambrusco area, right? And, the Lambrusco wine is, always at the center of the discussion because it's difficult to imagine a sparkling red wine, all right? But believe me, this year, every year there is a competition for the best sparkling wine in Italy, and the prize was for a Lambrusco type that actually was produced in the Modena region. So, I mean, no, but anyway, to answer the question, no problems for that. Actually, the kind of growing model that the Lambrusco is actually offering, that is basically fairly high yield, because the kind of ripening that you need is not that advanced. Today is a sort of winning project, and it is actually having quite a big success.
Okay. Great, thank you. A question from Sam about how many students are there in one class?
Oh yeah, well, it depends very much if the course is also followed by our twins of the vintage master, right? If not, average number is anywhere between 15 and 20, right? Ricardo can confirm that. Well, in my course, I have an extra number because they join the vintage, and then we have some Erasmus students actually getting in, mostly from South America, for instance. I don't know, we have a lot of people from Mexico. That is great. I mean, and so in my course, we can get up to 50, but that's just a sort of exception. Yeah, you should say 15, 20. And I think that the question is important because beyond a given threshold, of course, the quality would actually go down, because if you just have too many people, you're not able actually to provide the high quality teaching that we are actually pursuing.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in my class, we were a bit unlucky because we were coming out of COVID when I enrolled. So my year was actually a fairly low number of students. We were only 8, but the year before and the year after, they were like over 15 and less than 20. So, but anyway, even if you're in a small class,
we have actually a limit. Yeah. Actually, our limit for enrollment would be 20. All right. But of course, if I get 22 or 23, that's not a problem. Okay. But we don't want to have 50 people, 40 people, too many.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that answer. And we had one more question I saw. Sebastian was wondering, how much can this study help me with my future? And he is doing a master in agricultural development. So how is this course possibly helping him?
Well, I don't know, maybe, but what I can say that our goal is that, the wine value chain is composed by different segments, right? So you have the production, then you have the winery, then you have the labeling, the marketing, the consumer opinion. Well, the goal is actually to form someone who is actually able to join each of these 4 or 5 segments. Well, of course, you know, enology and viticulture would take most of the I mean, jobs and things. And just keep in mind that today, well, at least in Italy, it's difficult that a company that wants to hire you would ask you to do something very specific. At the very beginning, they want to have someone who's actually trying to deal with multiple issues, okay? That is also good for your personal growth. And then, of course, this time you might get some more specialized issues. Since 2 years ago, we also had another master, a 1-year master that was called Bennett, but we quit. We quit with that 2 years ago because we really want to stick with this SVI because we have invested a lot of energy in the double degree. We have invested a lot of energy in the internationalization of the course. And one thing that I would recommend you to look at, for instance, there is also a post from myself on the Facebook page. Just grab a minute to look at the almost 70 different topics that we offer for your master thesis. And they actually run from viticulture to enology, microbiology, genetics, wine marketing, and so on. That is really an example of when you might grow personally, because, you know, having to run a thesis and actually having to do the writing is something that would actually really improve your skills and, you know, will probably make you more robust for your future.
Great. I think those are good words, and I hope that gives an answer.
Should I answer?
Thank you. Yeah. So I was putting a polling on the screen. Excuse me for blocking you. It was just a question.
No problem.
We wanted to know from people what for information they were still looking for. So for those people that answered that, thank you. Just by answering it will go away, that block. And then open up another polling question if you're interested to apply for when that would be. So thank you for letting us know that feedback. It's very useful for us and for the university as well. And
of course, we can say that Julia is available for any info. I'm available. Just send me an email. And you get a fast answer, and that's it.
And well, then that's it.
Yeah,
we wrap up
absolutely.
the session. Here's the email, by the way, from your team, Julia, I believe.
Yep. That's me. That's our team, actually. So if you have any questions, please send us an email. You can also call us. So please do. If you have anything, we are really available to help.
Well, that's great to hear. And with those words, we will round off the session. I don't see any questions anymore. So hopefully everything was clear. Thanks everyone for having joined. See already thumbs up.
Sam is typing. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So
just saying hello. Okay.
Thank yous and great session. I hear. Well, that's good to see. So that's what we do
Thank
it for.
Sebastian. Thanks for your nice words.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks everyone. And I have a last polling question to see how we did. And there it is. Thanks to let us know, grading us, and bye-bye.